What's up, everyone? This is Gail Dudley with your news in motion. How are you today on this Wednesday morning, April the 28th, 2021? Somebody talk to me. Who's in the room today? Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Come on in this room. Good morning, Antoinette, Pastor Antoinette. Good morning, Deborah. Good morning to you. Good morning, Lori. Good morning, Jardenia. Good morning, Marion, Jeffrey Allen James, Diane Ladybug, Gracie. Good morning to all of you. Good morning. Good morning, Dana. Good morning, Jacqueline and Tracy and Stephanie. Good morning to all of you. Good morning, Hester. Good morning, Kenny Stanley. Good morning, Cassandra. Good morning. Good morning, Diane Ladybug. Yes, happy hump day. Happy hump day to all of you. So y'all know by now I'm just like extremely transparent. Good morning, Julie. Good morning, Adrian. Good morning, John Gore. Good morning. I want to tell y'all what's happening. One of my monitors went out at the very last minute. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And then I heard this thing, don't let them see you sweat. Just keep on going. So I'm going to continue to keep on going. Good morning, Pastor Anita. Good morning to you. So I'm trying to work it through my cell phone too. So I can at least get another monitor going because we have a special guest today, and I am so excited. Good morning, Deborah Sneed. Good morning, Pastor Antoinette. And you know what I had to say, y'all? I had to say, well, isn't this what usually happens when things are supposed to go all well? Things get a little crazy or wonky, but it's okay, y'all, because we're going to keep going. Hello, somebody. So I'm so excited today. I'm so excited. And I should have expected something to go a little weird, but hey, it is what it is, right? So good morning to everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. How y'all doing today? Y'all heard a little bit of my story. So how are you all doing today? How are you doing? So much to talk about today. So much is in the news, but because of our special guest today, good morning, Tony. Good morning, Louis Fryer III. Good morning, Patricia Lyles. Because of our special guest today, we're going to condense some things. And they're going to come in right about 7:30. So I'm just waiting on them to come in. But until that time, let's just go ahead. Good morning, Judy Neal. Until that time, until they pop into the green room, let's just go ahead and do what we do. So we had so many amazing questions yesterday about gaining seats, states losing seats, states staying the same, the entire redistricting, gerrymandering. We talked about the mapping. We talked about all of that. So I'm so excited. I'm waiting for her to get into the green room, but I'm so excited to have an expert who's going to be talking with us today. She's the bomb.com. And even as late as 9:30 last night, when you do what you do, you're working through things, you're asking questions, you're seeing what's happening. Trying to get her in here. You're seeing what's happening. You're going through so much. And I see her just popped in the green room. And so she's going to come. She's an expert. Just a couple of things I want to share. I'm just so excited. Can y'all tell I'm excited? When you get a moment, check out this website. When you get a moment, check out this website. You'll be like, what is going on right here? But check that out. So I want to read this. All on the line. We're a mission to end gerrymandering because it contributes to the polarization and dysfunction in our political system. It's time to end map manipulation and finally have fair districts. We deserve accountable, responsive, elected leaders. And then I'm going to put this up here just because I want you to see this quote directly. Bam. With fair maps and more just electoral system, we can have leaders who are more likely to tackle the important issues facing our country and be more responsive to the needs and desires of the people they are elected to represent. Again, I'm going to show you this map that I shared yesterday as I introduce attorney Katie Shanahan. Katie Shanahan currently serves as the Ohio State Director for All on the Line, a grassroots advocacy campaign that is part of the national effort to end gerrymandering. She is an attorney who has worked in progressive electoral politics for over a decade with the mission of ensuring that all voters have equitable access to the ballot box and to fair representation. She received both her Juris Doctor and master's degree in public policy and management from The Ohio State University and is barred to practice law in the state of Ohio and where, y'all? Washington, D.C. So I am so excited to bring in today Katie. What's up, girl? You up early.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a lot of questions.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so glad to be here.
I am so excited. I love the work that you're doing with attorney Eric Holder and everything that's going on. And I hear you are the expert. You're the person we need to be speaking to. And trust me, this family, News in Motion, had so many questions yesterday. Like, what? Ohio lost a seat? Like, what? Texas gained seats? Florida gained a seat? What is happening? How is this redistricting going to start? So I'm going to ask you like 2 questions, and then I'm going to put you on the full screen, and you're going to just share. And as I see other questions coming in from the audience, I may pop them up on the screen. Okay. Are you able to see the screen? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So here's the question.
Okay.
What the hell is going on?
That's a great question. So not yesterday, it was Monday already. My days are so confused. Monday was Apportionment Day, which we sort of proclaimed as the unofficial start to the redistricting process. And Apportionment Day is when the census releases to the states population data. So just raw numbers. We haven't yet gotten the nitty-gritty details that we'll use to actually draw new districts, but we got just a raw population number and information about how many U.S. House seats each state gets. Okay. So in the U.S. House, there are only 435 seats that have to be allocated to all 50 states and some of the territories. And we allocate those, we pass them out based on population. And a piece of it is the size of your state. Each state gets at least one U.S. House representative. But then they're also passed out. The other factor there is how quickly your state is gaining population. So for example, Ohio.
That's so scary, but go ahead.
For example, there are 2 reasons why a state could lose U.S. House seats. One is that you've actually lost population over the last decade, and so your share of the pot is now smaller. The other reason, which is what's true for Ohio and California, for example, is that you've gained population in the last decade, but you're gaining it more slowly than other states are. And so across the decade, your share of the population won't grow as much. And so it's not warranted that you keep the number of seats that you have, because there are other states that are growing more quickly, whose population share will take up more of the pot. So like I said, that's true of Ohio, California. So even though California, for example, gained, I think, over 1 million people over the last decade, they still lost a seat.
Lost. The first time in history, right?
I think that's right. And which is not true for Ohio, right? Ohio has been on a losing streak for a couple of decades.
Right.
Some of that is population decline, right? Especially as manufacturing has shifted. A lot of folks are moving out of Ohio. I'll go on rant all day about why that's true because of our gerrymandering and policies that don't make Ohio a friendly place to live for too many people. Right. But in this last decade, it's because we only gained 1.2, our rate of expansion was only just over 2 percentage points. I think it was 2.3% is how much of our population size we expanded by, which is just not as quick as states like Texas or Colorado or Florida are growing. And one surprise yesterday actually was Arizona not gaining a seat, because we also gained a lot of population. And so
if I can, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to I want to jump in, and then I'm really going to give you the whole screen so you can just really teach us. And that is, let's take even New York, the state of New York.
Sure.
They lost a seat, but they looked at it as if they've just knocked on 89 more doors. Yes. So is it really that the population is shrinking, or is it that we were trying to conduct the 2020 census in the middle of a pandemic, where people were isolating, they were like not answering the doors, they did not have access to the computers at the libraries or so forth? Is that a piece of it?
Yes.
Are these real numbers, or
they are real numbers?
In 2020?
Yes, they are real numbers, but of course there are a number of factors that went into challenges that the census faced in ensuring that the count was complete and that the data that we got from it was accurate. Some of it is the 18 months we spent, actually an affiliate of the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, of which All on the Line is also affiliate. The National Redistricting Foundation, which is a 501c3 foundation where we do a lot of our litigation work, was a part of the lawsuit against the former administration to get the citizenship question off of the census. But that 18 months that we spent in court litigating that, of course, had an impact on how immigrant and refugee populations felt about being honest when census enumerators finally got to get outside, which also started way late because of the pandemic. Because there's a lot of very understandable mistrust in the federal government. And that's true not just for immigrant and refugee populations, that's true for a whole host of communities for very valid reasons. So the pandemic, of course, is another reason why there were some challenges facing the census. And that's actually why the census delay was so clear in terms of how late they're getting us these numbers. So we're getting these numbers about 4 months later than we normally would have gotten them under a normal schedule. And we won't get our redistricting numbers until 5 or 6 months later than we normally would. And a piece of that actually was the Census Bureau trying very earnestly to ensure that the count was as complete as possible, particularly in what are historically deemed hard to count communities. So those are communities of color, refugee and immigrant communities, poor communities, rural communities, transient communities. So that includes students, anyone who moves around a lot. All of those communities we want, especially those by not coincidence, are the same communities that are often most marginalized by the political process writ large and by things like gerrymandering. We needed to make sure that that count was complete. So part of the delay is actually making sure that that count is complete. Now, the big sort of news splash is that New York lost a seat to Minnesota, missing it by just 89 people.
Yes.
And that's a very real thing, right? I mean, so when we're talking about the fact that we only have 435 seats, and so of course we're out in a competition. Ohio actually in 2019, if we had done the census in 2019, Ohio was 435th on the list. So we would have kept our 60
one, right?
But because we did it in 2020, the other states sort of go ahead of us because they're gaining population more quickly than we are. And so we missed out by just a couple of slots in keeping our 16th seat. I think Ohio was under by more than 10,000, maybe 11,000 people. That's how much many more people we would have needed to have kept our 16th seat, obviously much closer for New York.
So what can we do? Like for those, if we're trying to go out and start educating people, because we're approaching the 2022 midterm elections.
Right.
So what can we do? How do we communicate this, especially in the GOP controlled states right now? What's happening? Just go.
What's happening?
Okay. I'm gonna let you go for it. And as I see other questions, I'll put them up on the screen.
Okay, sounds good. So like I said, this is the unofficial start to the redistricting process. So redistricting is a process that happens every 10 years after we conduct the census. So the first piece is getting a population count of every single person who lives in this country. And those numbers are used for two main reasons. The first of which is to help determine how more than $1 trillion in federal programs, aid programs like healthcare programs like Medicare and Medicaid, school funding, infrastructure, emergency response, all sorts of things get funded by the census. That's one piece. The second piece is that we use those population numbers and demographics data to help redraw district boundaries for state legislative and congressional district maps. And every single state has to go through the redistricting process. And redistricting is simply redrawing the lines to account for how that population has changed across the decade. And the reason you have to do that is because of a constitutional guarantee or principle of one person, one vote. And that idea is that my vote is no more or less powerful than any of yours, because we are all in districts that are about equally populated, meaning we all have the same proportional level of representation. So you don't have one district that has only 100 people in it and another district that has 1 million people in it, meaning the 1 million person district would have way less proportional representation than the 100 person district would. So we have to make sure that all of our districts are about equally populated. But across the decade, people move, places like Columbus, for example, where I live, have seen a huge population growth over the last decade. So all of our districts in central Ohio are way overpopulated. And then there are other places in the state, this is true of every state across the country, where folks have moved away, and so their districts are all underpopulated. So we have to redraw the lines to make sure that those districts are equally populated. Now, the trouble in the redistricting process is with gerrymandering, which is a form of cheating during the redistricting process, where certain politicians manipulate where district boundaries are drawn to benefit a group or a political party at the direct expense of other people's political power. So there are two types of gerrymandering. One is partisan gerrymandering, where you are explicitly drawing maps to favor one political party over the other. And then the other type of gerrymandering is racial gerrymandering, where you are using race as the predominant factor for how you're drawing district lines. And racial gerrymandering is unconstitutional. You can go to both state and federal court to say, you used race as a predominant factor, and that is a constitutional violation, and that cannot stand. Partisan gerrymandering, unfortunately, we can now no longer go to federal court to argue those cases. You can still go to state court to argue those cases, and there are places like Ohio, which recently passed reform measures, people-approved reform measures that set up rules about how our new districts have to be drawn, which provide some safeguards against the worst forms of gerrymandering that we see now. So my one call to action, now that we've had the apportionment numbers go out, is for everyone now to turn their attention to the redistricting process, because this process has on the line 10 years worth of political power at stake. Whether or not your community has the political power it deserves depends on whether or not our maps are drawn fairly. Now, I'm from Ohio, so that's where all my expertise is, but this is true across the country. In 2011, the Republicans masterfully gerrymandered states into oblivion. And they did so because they had complete control over who was holding the pen during the redistricting process. And the result of that has meant that communities have been robbed of having the ability to elect their own chosen representatives. And so you see a complete disconnect between how people feel about any number of issues, whether it is preventing gun violence, acting on climate, protecting democracy and voting rights, protecting access to healthcare. It doesn't matter what the issue is. There's a huge disconnect between how we as Americans or as Ohioans feel about those issues and how our elected officials are actually legislating on those issues. And that disconnect is a direct result of gerrymandering. And those efforts 100% are going to be there in 2021 when we go through the redistricting process. You don't just need to take my word for it. The Republicans are already admitting that they are going to gerrymander their way to try to maintain their power grip in states across the country. There's an organization that's actually the polar opposite of my own. It's called the National Republican Redistricting Trust, and their own executive director admitted that their goal is to help ensure that Republicans get 20 or 30 new safe seats, and Democrats only get 5 or 15 new safe seats after this redistricting process. And the reality is, if we're actually drawing fair maps, when we're talking about the congressional seats and the makeup of the US House, there should be about 20 or 25 safe seats where both Democrats or Republicans could win, because they're actually competitive seats where our elected officials, or our candidates rather, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, actually have to compete for our vote, and they're accountable to us as their voters, which is how our democracy should work. So our work at All on the Line is squarely focused on, first, raising the awareness about the harmful impacts that gerrymandering has on the issues that we care about and the communities where we live. But the second piece of our work is increasing public engagement in the redistricting process. At the end of the day, redistricting is all about the people. It's about whether or not power is restored into the hands of the people where it belongs. And it needs to be people-centered, which means our communities should be driving the conversation about what we need in terms of resources and political representation, and what our district should look like to reflect the needs of our communities and the voices of our voters. So that's my pitch. I see that there are some questions popping in. So I don't know, Gail, let's see, this question from John Gore: with losing one seat, who will go due to the loss? This is a great question. This is about Ohio. I'll answer that question. I don't have as much expertise in other states. So with Ohio, this answer is a little tricky because of two things. So first, Ohio is going to move from 16 to 15 US House seats. And it's not quite as easy of an answer as saying, well, these are the two districts that they're sort of going to sandwich together to make one big district, right? Which is what happened in 2011, where Republicans gerrymandered what's now called the Snake on the Lake district, which is Representative Marcy Kaptur's district, which goes from Toledo and then snakes along Lake Erie to catch parts of Western Cleveland. And that district was drawn particularly to combine a Cleveland-based district and then the Toledo district to force Marcy Kaptur and then Dennis Kucinich to run against each other, thus cutting out a Democratic seat. Because of population, I actually think that there's sort of no other option than for the Republicans to lose a seat here in Ohio. But the other reason I say that is because of the new rules that exist that will guide how our districts have to be drawn. So in 2018, Ohio voters overwhelmingly passed a congressional redistricting reform ballot measure that completely overhauled how we will go through the redistricting process to draw our new congressional districts. And not just in terms of who will actually draw those districts, but also what the new rules are that direct how those districts have to be drawn. And a lot of those rules are centered around protecting our communities, especially our large urban metropolitan cities, which are cracked apart and gerrymandered to dilute their political power and sink a lot of those areas into surrounding Republican areas. So my neighborhood, for example, the street that I used to live on until a couple of months ago was actually split between two different congressional districts. I live in northern Columbus. And even though I only live about an 8-minute drive from the State House, my congressional district is one that goes an hour north to Mansfield and an hour east to Zanesville, two rural great cities in Ohio that I and Columbus don't have a ton in common with. And so the new rules actually guard against that. So they would, for example, ensure that the entire city of Cincinnati has to be included in a district. Right now it's cut in half between two different districts. It would require that all of Cleveland be in one district. Right now Cleveland is split into 4 different districts. It would require more attention to keep other cities like Toledo and Akron and Dayton all together. So the way that those rules will impact how the new district or where the 16th district will go is that we have to fight to make sure that our major cities are protected against being cracked apart and gerrymandered. And that will help shift where those districts will go. So the answer about where that 16th district will go is sort of a result of the rules and how hard we fight to protect our communities. Good question here from Kim. How do we get engaged and raise our voices I know that Gail put this up earlier, but you can head to allontheline.org. There are tabs up at the top. So even if you're not from Ohio, there's a states tab, and you can pull down to see all of our target states. These are states that have the most opportunity, either because they are the most gerrymandered or because there are really unique opportunities for folks to actually right the ship of their democracy in our state. So those states are Ohio, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Colorado. So you can, if you're in any of those states, you can pull down there. We also, though, have opportunities for folks who don't live in those states to get engaged in our work. I will drop in the chat box a link to our Mobilize page, which is where we host events. We have a national volunteer call every month. And then if you're in states, I would encourage you to go look on those state pages because we always have volunteer opportunities for folks to get engaged. Marian Jackson asks, how will this affect funding for the school system? This is a great question. School funding varies by state. So I'm not going to opine on anything other than Ohio because that's what I know best. But there are two answers to this. First is there is some school funding and school programs that are actually funded by the census. And those federal aid programs that use census data allocate funding based on population and need. So part of the reason why it was so important that everybody get counted on the census is because we need to know where there's need in communities for those programs. So for example, free and reduced lunches at schools is a program that is funded by federal aid dollars based on census data. And so making sure that enough funding goes into those communities so kids can get the lunches that they need and have food during the day, that's partially based on census data. Other school funding, though, depends entirely on how the state funds schools. So here in Ohio, we unfortunately rely too much on property tax. So our school funding system has actually been unconstitutional for almost my entire life, almost 33 years. And the legislature has still yet not fixed that school funding apparatus. But that's actually, it's not exactly related to this topic, but is tangentially related because whether or not your representatives are making sure that your schools are getting funded properly relies entirely on whether or not you are adequately represented because your districts are fair or not. So that's how that's related. And then Gail, I'm going to go find that Mobilize link and drop it in the chat box for you to share with folks.
Okay, cool. Now y'all see how quick this time, it's just like it's gone.
Yeah, quickly.
And we could actually listen to her for another 30, 45 minutes. Wow, just the information you gave us, which was actually a ton of information, is very beneficial. And I heard you. So y'all go to that link and see how you can begin to take action. Because I think so often, I want to call you Attorney Shanahan. You were like, oh, okay. Professional, you know. But I think one of the challenges that so many of us are having is that what else can we do? And I know we don't have time to really tap into this. So I'm gonna just have you come back because you're now my new BFF. So
I'd be happy to do it.
Because you have a wealth of knowledge and information, and it's so key to understand these districts and the changes here. Pastor Alex is saying this was awesome. So, and he's in the Baltimore, Maryland area. Okay. So yeah, please put that link on there. So y'all know I have a question for all of you. And the question is for today, while she's still on the screen, will you commit to sharing the information you learned today from Attorney Katie Shanahan with others? Why or why not? Please put your responses on the thread because we're going to go through those and see what else we can do and what other resources you may need. So again, Attorney Katie, thank you so much for hanging out with us just for a little bit.
You're welcome.
We had more questions coming, but you know, time is of an essence. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. And as we approach this redistricting season, we want to be able to raise our voices and stand alongside all of you so that our voices are heard and that we don't have these disenfranchised, you know, where the minority communities are marginalized or we're being disenfranchised. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Yeah, please let me know how it can be helpful. Like I said, this is our main focus from now until those districts are drawn, and it's an all hands on deck moment. We need everybody to get involved. So I dropped that link to All on the Line. You can also go explore on our website to find state specific information. You can find us all over social media. Feel free to track us down. We'd love to have you all join our fight. And thank you so much, Gail, again for the invitation. Such a great way to start the morning.
Absolutely. Have a great day, Katie.
Thank you so much. See ya.
See ya. All right, y'all. So that was a lot of information. I hope you took notes. And as we continue to move forward, thank y'all. Y'all see where News in Motion is going, and I'm so excited about it. All right, y'all, for the coronavirus numbers, and we're almost out of here. In the U.S., confirmed cases, 32,926,101. Again, 32,926,101. And remember, I go to the World Health Organization for these numbers. Deaths, 587,369. Again, deaths, 587,369. Recovered, 25,519,558. Again, recovered, 25,519,558. So those are our numbers. Y'all listen here tonight. History is going to take place, and I'm so excited about it. Y'all, tonight, both women will be seated behind the President of the United States of America, President Joe Biden. Both women, Madam Vice President Kamala Harris and Speaker Pelosi. And I'm going to just read this quote that came directly from the Associated Press. History will be made there when, for the first time, two women will form the backdrop for the presidential address to Congress. Hello, somebody. Every woman, no matter what side of the aisle you are on, you should be watching this with pride. Just so proud to see two women as the backdrop and hoping that one day a woman would be in the forefront. Speaker Pelosi will return to her seat on the rostrum. Joining her will be the California Democrat Vice President Kamala Harris in her role as President of the Senate. Harris is the first woman, Black person, and Indian American to be Vice President. Y'all, also tonight, President Joe Biden is putting his finishing touches on his first address to joint session of Congress, which is a primetime speech tonight on the eve of his 100th day in office. President Biden will use this speech before lawmakers and a broader viewer audience to talk about what he's accomplished in the opening months of his presidency and lay out other domestic and foreign policies priorities. Where you can watch is going to be 9 p.m. Eastern time on all major news network and cable television statements. The White House will also be planning to stream live. You can go to www.wh.gov/live. It's also going to be on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. It's going to be on C-SPAN, C-SPAN Radio, cspan.org, and NPR is also streaming, so you can find it. If you really want to dig into what's happening, y'all, just take notes because we're going to recap it tomorrow as well. All right, y'all, for the win, and we're almost out of here. For the win, attorney Eric H. Holder Jr. Again, all on the line. This is an organization that he had a conversation with the 44th President Barack Obama. And if you go to the website, they fill up the entire website. I was thrilled that we were able to get attorney Katie Shanahan. She's right here in Ohio, but you see that she is barred both in Ohio and in Washington, D.C. I was so excited. And I don't know if y'all paid attention. I'm sure you did. Her information was fire. I just enjoyed even last night, again, 9:30, having these conversations, sending these text messages back and forth so that we could bring her on here so that our viewers would be able to glean from this information as well. So attorney Eric Holder is doing great work. He wants fair. He wants us to have these districts, these mappings done right and not where it's marginalizing people who are Black and brown people. Enough of that already. Enough of that. I love what y'all wrote. Really grateful and thankful that Doctor has done for me and his family. Okay. So we're going to be praying for you and what's going on there with you. You share because you have plenty of people. John Gore is saying outstanding information, extremely helpful. Yes, I'll be sharing. Deborah says, I will absolutely share the valuable information. Shardenia says, thank you for the awesome knowledge. Oh, y'all, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, I will share the information. This is great. This is great. Women of power, yep, they're going to be on the rostrum today. And again, Eric Holder, he's doing a great work. Y'all remember he was the Attorney General for a while under the Obama administration. And I love the fact that when he left office, he continued to do the work because of the things that he was seeing. So that's why he received the win for today. Our inspirational message, y'all, is trust. Trust in the Lord with all our heart. Lean not into thy own understanding. In all thy way, acknowledge him, and he shall direct our paths. Y'all, we have to trust. We cannot become fearful. Now we have the information. I believe it was Pastor Anita that said knowledge is power. You know, people perish for the lack of knowledge. People perish for the lack of knowledge. Pastor Alex says, hey, family, I'm in the process of moving to St. Petersburg, Florida. Well, all right. We're going to be praying for you as you move. And y'all, a bit of sad news before we come off of here today. We want to lift up our sister that's in News in Motion family, Hester. Hester lost her mom, the passing of her mom, 91 years old. If y'all remember, I was sharing with y'all a few months ago that Hester was taking care of her mom. Hester is in North Carolina. So please think about her. Please pray for her. Please pray for the family. Send her words of encouragement, of love. Let's lift her up in this time as she is just, you know, reflecting and carrying the loss of her mother, age 91. So Hester, know that we're here. If you need anything, we are indeed a family. Pastor Alex, know that we will be praying for you and your beautiful bride, Laura, as y'all are moving to St. Petersburg, Florida. Y'all, we have work to do. We have work to do. And Pastor Alex, I can see you as an ambassador in Florida because we're going to need you there in Florida. But y'all trust. Thanks so much for letting me do the news differently today. Wednesdays are going to start looking like this. So we're going to be bringing in people now that we have our booking person who's going to be reaching out, booking different people. Y'all, the lineup that's coming up is amazing, and I'm excited about it. I have to pinch myself and ask sometimes, how did we get here? And just being grateful what God is doing in our lives. And I never would have thought that News in Motion would be where we are today. I never would have thought that News in Motion would be where we are today. We are approaching our 1 year. For all of you who are still on the line, before you sign off, you may get an inbox message from one of the millennials. You may be getting an inbox message because they're trying to do something for the 1 year, which will be June the 22nd. So we're so excited about that. Y'all know what I say, right? Y'all know what I say. And y'all pray that I get that other monitor going. Y'all know what I say. Y'all stay well. And remember, make some moves.